I wanted to go earlier today and go on a ride, but it was raining pretty hard and I decided I didn't want to do that. And then later today I decided I just needed to go for a ride, so I went and picked up some stuff. So I just decided I needed to stop and get some pellets for my grill so I could cook some hamburgers, and also stop and get something of the booze and alcohol variety. And now I got to see if I can make it fit, because I've got all the pellets in the trunk and I've got my jacket and other stuff in the side case. So let's see if I can make it work. With room to spare. Yay! Now I'm going to do a little bit of barbecuing, and then once I go inside, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I learned on my last camping trip. And I tell you, I made a lot of mistakes on my first motorcycle camping trip. I don't know if you've watched the video, but I recently took a motorcycle camping trip up to Lincoln, Nebraska, and let's just say I did some things wrong. And so today I'm going to talk about what I learned during that trip and how in the future I can make my motorcycle camping better, and perhaps you can use these tips and make your camping trips better as well. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is when I was editing my footage, I realized that I really didn't enjoy the trip there or the trip back so much, because I was just rush, and I didn't get a chance to stop and see the sights, or stop and do any short vlog things at the places I stopped to get gas or anything, because I was just in such a hurry to get there. And the same thing when I was coming back. And if I had it to do over, I would instead make a few more stops, not be so much in a hurry. And you know what? When I go through a city, I'd make sure that I have my GoPro on and it's got a fresh battery when I go through a city at night, so that I can get the city lights and everything. I regret not doing that. The first actual camping related thing is I only own one sleeping bag, and it is rated for 0 degrees. Now in August, it's not 0 degrees in Nebraska. So it was one of those things where it was too cold to sleep without the sleeping bag, but to be inside the sleeping bag, it was too hot. So I didn't really sleep much because of that until it started to rain real hard and the temperature cooled down and I could be partially in the sleeping bag. Speaking of the rain, the next thing that I learned is that make sure that you don't leave your clothes on the floor of the tent. Either put them in some kind of a bag or something, or anything like that, because the bottom of the tent is going to soak up water. And to make it worse, when I set up my tent and put a tarp underneath the tent, I didn't fold the tarp under like I normally do, and it was outside the tent, and therefore it just caught water and funneled it under the tent and made it so much worse. But my clothes that I wore yesterday, apparently they are all soaked now, because I could wring them out. Just so y'all know, I'm not lying about how wet my clothes got in the tent last night. Now, this one isn't exactly camping related, more so moto vlog related, but if you watched my trip to Nebraska video, then you'll notice that there was this part in there where I lost my GoPro.
And it has been a long time since I've been down. Mother.
So my tip is to make sure that your GoPro or whatever camera you're using is actually all the way snapped in so it doesn't bounce off, because even though the GoPro is sturdy and definitely survived the fall, I did not get it because I pulled over, the car behind me avoided the GoPro, and the car behind them stopped, grabbed the GoPro and took off. So basically somebody stole my GoPro, and that's not good. But it could have all been avoided had I made sure it snapped in all the way. Now on to the next segment of what I did wrong and what I did right. Talk about the things that I brought and what I should have brought instead. Now, one thing I'll say that I was definitely glad that I brought is I got an electric pump that plugs into the cigarette lighter of my motorcycle so I could inflate my air mattress. I didn't want to use a battery-powered one because then there's extra stuff I have to take. But if you have a motorcycle that has a cigarette lighter outlet, this is a good thing to bring. Though you may want to make sure your motorcycle is running when you're doing this so you don't drain the battery and not be able to start your motorcycle. Also, I wish this was a little bit smaller, but I had plenty of room still, so it fit fine. The next thing is the tent. So the tent that I brought is actually a really good tent, but it takes up a lot of space and it's heavy because it was not made for backpacking, so to say. It was more so made for extreme weather. And so if I'm going to be doing a lot of camping from my motorcycle, I want to get a lighter tent that takes up less room. The other thing I'm mentioning is this GSI Outdoors coffee rocket. I made coffee with this. It works well and I don't have any complaints about it. It did its job, and yeah, I had coffee. Coffee's important. Though when we're talking about coffee, the cup that I brought was one of those tin cups, and tin cups, while they don't take up much room, they also don't keep your coffee hot very long, and if you have a tin cup, you're going to have to drink your coffee fast. And then, as far as cooking your coffee and your food, I brought this Ultralight backpacking stove by Magellan, and it fits on one of these tanks, or you can fit it on a smaller one as well. I didn't know how much fuel it was going to take, so I got the bigger one so I didn't run out, and I still have plenty left, so I would have been fine with the small one. The stove itself just fits in the palm of your hand. It's really small. It doesn't take up much room at all. So it was well worth it. It takes up a lot less room than my old stove. Also, too, when you're camping, it's important to bring something to put the pegs in the ground. I brought an axe. You don't necessarily need something that big, but that's what I brought, was an axe. Another important thing is, I mentioned the clothes, so make sure your make sure that the rest of your clothes that is maybe in something waterproof or in your saddlebags or something so they don't get wet, because you don't want all your clothes to be wet. That would have been really bad. Also, I brought a flashlight. The flashlight I brought was bigger than I needed it to be, but bringing a flashlight is important when you're camping, and it's especially good if you can bring a flashlight that is rechargeable. That way, if the battery goes dead, you can just charge it from your motorcycle, and then you have a flashlight again, and you don't have to go to town and buy new batteries or anything like that. So anyhow, I hope to do a lot more motorcycle camping. Hopefully I'll even get to go again this year before it gets cold. But that's what I learned. Those are the mistakes that I made, and hopefully I'll do better in the future. And hopefully some of these tips were helpful. If there's any motorcycle camping mistakes that you made that you think would be helpful for people to know, I would appreciate it if you'd put them down in the comments below. And I would also appreciate it if you got use out of this video to click like, and if you're not already, I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe. Ride safe, enjoy the ride, and I'll catch you in the next video.